Gearbox, and welcome. Behind me I've got the Seat Leon Cupra R310, and I'm taking it on some of my favourite back B roads to see what it's actually like to drive. Although this is a Golf R in drag, is it actually any good? And is it as good as the arch nemesis rival, the Honda Civic Type R? Although you can't buy one of these. But anyway, I'm going to jump in and go for a spin. Seat. Now, I've driven this over various different B roads, and it does beg the question of, would you have one of these over a Golf R? Because the Seat Leon Cupras have always been just that bit sweeter to drive, like the 280 and the 290 variants. Obviously this one's the 310, so it's got 310 horsepower, same sort of output that you get from a GTI Club Sport S. So really, is this a GTI Club Sport S in a Spanish outfit? Well, yes and no. First off, let's get the good bits out of the way. The engine just wants to rev. It's not as absolutely diabolical at the top end like a Honda Civic Type R FK8, but it's good enough. It wants to pull, and mid-range torque is really good too. It sounds pretty nice too. I know some of it's faked into the cabin, but I don't mind it too much. It doesn't sound completely fake, like, you know, remember like the F10 M5s, which sounded like a V10 on the inside and they were a bit like a V8 on the outside. This one isn't like that, so I quite like that. Plus there's also been a few minor changes to the cosmetics of the car. So you've got an aero pack, which obviously gives you some small changes in terms of downforce, etc., and help the car to turn in. Plus you've got a few carbon bits as well too, genuine carbon. So that's actually quite nice for a 35 grand car. But from a driving point of view, the steering's actually quite nice. Like the Golf, you've got various different settings to change the way the car behaves. If you go into the Cupra setting, everything's sort of max attack, but there's only one problem with this, unlike say the Golf R or the GTI Club Sport S, where the ride is actually quite plush, because that's one of the highlights of the GTI Golfs and just Golfs in general, is once you go into the sport or hardcore settings, the ride doesn't go absolutely berserk, rock stiff hard, and it ends up just crashing over bumps. Whereas unfortunately in this Leon Cupra R, it does a little bit. If you go over really hard bumps, it feels like the top mounts are sort of hitting onto the arm. It just feels like it's bottoming out, and it makes a horrible knock, almost like a bang. It feels like you've just buckled a wheel or popped a tyre. So that's not great. But however, from a driving point of view, the 6-speed manual gearbox is really nice. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10 for overall shift, because it's actually really, really good. You can only get these in a manual gearbox too. I think it's DSG for the ST, which is the estate version. Plus you've also got this trick electronically controlled limited slip diff, and when you launch it, most front wheel drive cars scrabble for traction. Even the Civic Type R sometimes hits for torque. So if I just launch it without me hitting the steering wheel, see if it sort of torque steers. It doesn't. It just goes in a straight line, which is really, really good, especially for someone that's got 280 foot-pounds and 310 horsepower. Imagine that 10 years ago, a Ford Focus RS Mark II with its clever Revo knuckle suspension would just still nip and tug all over the place. So from that perspective, it's really, really cool. Pretty good. It does feel very hardcore robust, and despite it being a 5-door family hatchback, you can just grab it by the scruff of the neck. Literally just go absolutely mental in this as well too. It's got the Brembo upgraded brakes, and I'll tell you what, once you hit them, yeah, they stop really well. Really, really well too. Pedal feels actually fantastic. So yeah, it's really, really nice in that respect. For example, it's running these Pirelli P0 tyres. It's a nice performance tyre, but it's not, you know, any sort of semi-slip Michelin Cup 2 or Trofeo R. It's just a normal tyre, which which actually works pretty well too. So the level of grip's really cool, but if you hit a puddle, you're not going to fall off. So say you bought one of these and they weren't rare. Say, you know, they didn't make 799 of these, and say that you could buy one all day, every day. Well, it'd be an interesting one, because obviously we've got a few other front-wheel drive hatchbacks, and you've got like the Hyundai i30N. Now, that is priced really, really well, £28,000, and that car, okay, it's not necessarily absolutely quick, but it is really good in terms of an engagement and feel from a car, from a front-wheel drive hatchback. It does actually make you feel very, very, I don't know, just boy racer-like, and that's what you want from a hot hatch, right? So from that point of view, that is really, really good. And plus, the chassis on that is a little bit more polished than this. The Honda Civic Type R, well, I do like the Honda Civic Type R. Okay, its looks aren't 110% great. Plus, some of the modes where you can switch, like for example in this or the i30N, you can basically individually change the suspension and the throttle adjustment, whereas that car you can't. It's just one setting and that's it. It still is a terrific, I still think it is the best driving front-wheel drive hatch compared to this. But I think if you wanted something to use every day, something to keep things low-key, but you want really good Spanish styling, premium build quality. Another thing I need to mention is this car does look more expensive than what the price suggests. It looks like a sub 40 plus £1,000 car. I think it's because of this grey paintwork and those bronze wheels. It just makes things seem that little bit different. For running around purposes and using it as a daily tool, I really do like this. I mean, it's very easy to drive, the gearbox is really easy and light, the clutch is light, you've got a really good sound system, you've got the Beat sound system. It works in that respect. As a car, as a tool to use every day, it does have that Golf feel about it, the thing of all things to all men. However, with the Seat Leon Cupra, what the Golf R lacks in is that overall excitement and feel, and I think the Cupra makes up for that. So for me, I would have this over a Golf R. I'm not saying it's better to drive than a Golf R, but I'd have one of these over a Golf R. I still think the Golf R has the best sort of suspension and damping on sale. It just is. But with this car though, there is something quite spectacular, the way it feels and the way it sort of just goes down the road. And I think Seat made a real good job of this. What Seat needs to do now is to make more of them.